Hey team, how are you? And welcome to the Experience with Rehman Cee, where we talk to real people with real stories about real life. And I've got, can you help me with the full pronunciation of your name? Because it's a very interesting name.
Yeah, it's a Spanish name. So my first name is Areli. My last name is Cuevas-Ocampo.
Okay, so Dr. Areli Cuevas-Ocampo. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate you. Where are you right now?
I currently live in Bristol. This is where I work. I'm originally from Mexico.
Okay, but you're in the UK right now.
Okay. Yes.
Interesting. How did you get there? How long have you been there?
I've been here for almost 2 years, and I got a job here because my area, neuropathology, is very rare amongst the medical specialties. So when I was
Neuropathology.
neuropathology. So you go to medical school, then you choose pathology as a specialty, and then I choose as a subspecialty the brain and the nervous system, which is neuropathology. And there are very few of us around the world. So even though the job market is limited, when there are openings, it's very difficult to fill those positions. So by the time I graduated, I trained in the States. So by the time I graduated in the States, there were not many openings for me, especially since I'm a foreign doctor in the States. So it was tricky to find a job over there. And the only openings were not necessarily neuropathology. And there were others in Canada and in the UK. So I picked this one because I thought it was the best at the time. So that's why I'm here.
You have a change of heart, do you?
No, it's I mean the UK is a fantastic place. I like a lot. The people are very warm. You have Europe around you, very close by, so it's good so far.
Yeah,
And the
good.
vegan
So how
movement.
long have you been in the UK again?
Sorry. Yeah, and what I wanted to say, the vegan movement is growing massively here in the UK. So I just feel like more understood. I've been here since December 2018.
2018, so about nearly 2 years plus, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's get into the show.
Okay.
So my first question to you is, what is your message to the world?
Whoa. My message to the world. Since I was a kid, I wanted to change the world. Either by music, because I didn't know I will be a medical student or a doctor or I will be a health professional. But I wanted to change the world because something was not right. I perceived that since I was growing up. So I guess my message to the world would be that we should look for the deep meaning of our lives and focus on growing those aspects in all the fields. It's not only in the medical system, it's not only in the environmental system, it has to do with everything: tech, music, entertainment. We need to leave behind the superficial way of living that we have, so complacent, so disinterested, so just turn a blind eye. I think we need to look for deep meaning for our lives, and to look for the common good and to focus on common values. I think this society lacks values, which are universal and intrinsic to our human nature. So I think that will be my message, going back to our original state, which is like an elevated state.
Interesting, interesting. So we'll discuss that. Sounds fascinating. Why should we be deep? Why can't we be superficial?
Because, we are supposedly the most evolved species living in this planet, as far as I'm concerned. Um, I think we can even outsmart our current state. If we are the most civilized species, we need to make the most of our intellect, our frontal cortex, and all aspects of our brain, basically, and not be just guided by the reptilian brain, which is like very instinctive. And that's basically what rules the world, the passion. Passion is good, but I think if we don't canalize or channel that passion with our intellect and feelings, which are core values, things don't work very well, and we can see that by the current status quo.
And you're probably one of the most qualified people to answer this question. But there are some people that are deep and there are some people that are superficial. So is this a neuro-based uh, positioning, or do you feel that everybody should be deep? Like, is there a genetic composition to depth and superficiality or not?
I
Well,
guess
not genetic, but biological.
that's $1 million question. Nobody knows where the consciousness resides, right? There is no physical anatomical structure that tells you, yes, the right occipital lobe has the consciousness center. We have identified the memory centers, in the temporal lobes, which are like here. We have identified the visual cortex, which is in the occipital lobe. I mean, the visual pathway is like encompasses the different structures, right? The retina, etc. But the consciousness is not has no location in the brain. I mean, many people talk about pineal gland. We know where the pineal gland is located. It's very, very in the center of our head, very, very well protected. Um, so, in terms of what makes some people be deep, or I don't mean deep in a very like a boring way of living. It's just like,
Well,
uh,
right now we're not putting a value on depth.
yeah,
We're just making a see your whole philosophy, the message to the world is around this statement of being deep and looking for deeper meaning. I-
hmm,
I've observed that some people are deep and some
yeah.
people are not so deep. So if your philosophy is around the idea of depth, then the assumption has to be that everybody biologically is capable of reasoning to that degree. So I was just trying to understand if you'd investigated and felt that there is this capability in everybody.
I think it's in everybody. That's what makes us human. We have the potential to become our highest version of ourselves, and that only comes with experience. That only comes with, pushing your comfort zone, trying to be vulnerable, learning from experiences. I mean, nobody likes to suffer, but I've discovered that it's through the challenges of life where you growth and you develop this appreciation for life. So I guess everybody can develop it, but it's just like kids in school. Some kids perform very well because they apply themselves to that, and others just get distracted. And it's just a matter of finding meaning within ourselves. Nobody knows what is meaningful to you or to me, but that's I guess that's like our main goal in life, to find our purpose. So people who are distracted or get into drugs or whatever other vice, I think they haven't found meaning. Either they being distracted purposely by the external factors, or they haven't developed the strength. So many other factors.
So, if I understand it from your perspective, depth represents levels of awareness, and the journey is to inculcate, develop, practice more and more levels of awareness to get more, get a broader and wider view of the perception you have of reality.
Yeah, yeah. I think when I was referring to deep, and that was the word that we are discussing, has to do a lot with being aware, being in the present, and making the most of your time and space that you have.
Sure. And I wanted to qualify that because I'm sure that that word is going to keep coming up. So I wanted to make sure we were consistent on our understanding.
Sure.
So let's go back a little bit. Let me try and understand how you formed this conclusion on the message you have for the world. Let me try and understand your philosophy. So let's go back to day one. Let's go back to childhood. Talk to me a little bit more about your parents. What was their parenting style?
My situation is very particular because I, for some reason, I had a very good memory. Since I was 1 year old, I could recite the alphabet, the numbers. I could dance, speak, perform. I learned to write and read when I was 4 years old. So many things that were, I didn't. I didn't ask for it, it just happened. That was one particularity. The other was that my parents were, I mean, I don't remember much because when I was 6 years old, my mom passed away of breast cancer. So I only remember like, some images like black and white here and there, some events that I remember, but most of the things were like, my mom and my dad were not here because they were in the hospital, things like that. But the good memories, are there. Like I was a loved kid by not only by my parents, but everybody around me, my grandmothers, grandfathers, aunts, uncles. And I guess, I think being loved despite the adversity that I, experienced, it was a good uh, frame for me, like to grow this way, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And so I'm trying to understand your environment. So what you were saying was that which part of Mexico were you from?
Oh, it's a relatively mid-sized to small town. It's 2 hours south from Mexico City. Now it has everything, internet, all the first world commodities. But back in the days, it was very rural, not in the sense like poverty, but basic stuff like farmers and the church and the little plaza in the center of the town.
Yeah. So in that environment, you basically lived with an extended family. So
Yeah,
you had your grandparents from both your mother and your father's side, or just your father's side?
from both. Both
Okay.
are from that small town. So big
Oh,
families. My dad had 14 or 13 brothers and sisters. My mom,
wow.
yeah. So huge family.
And so you were in this kind of, I would imagine, a large house. Uh, your mother passed away. Are you the eldest, or are there other?
I'm the oldest. Yes,
Okay, so there's like, how many below you are there?
just one. And then my dad married again, but that happened
Okay.
later. Yeah.
So talk to me about your father. What's his personality?
Oh, my dad. My dad is intense. He has a very, you know, um, he's a man of principles. He has very high standards. He was actually studying to be a priest. He went to the seminary, and I don't know. I think he regretted that decision and then left when he was in university, his university years, and then he met my mom, and that happened. Um, After being in Catholicism, and after my mom passed, I think what happened to my dad is that he found comfort in Christianity. So he converted from Catholicism to Christianity. And it's a very particular branch of Christianity. It came from the Seventh day Adventists from the States. Back in the 1800s, they indoctrinated the South American people, Central American, Mexico in particular, and it's a branch of that denomination. So he's very religious, not in the sense like he punishes women or something like that, but for a liberal modern family, he's a little bit strict, but in a good way. Nothing traumatic, and he's intelligent. I consider my dad a very intelligent man.
So, so he basically has principles, and he was in this uh, tradition of Seventh Day Adventists. The rest
Yeah.
of the family remained in a Catholic kind of space.
Yeah, you just make me realize another particularity of my childhood. I was always confronting points of views. Growing up with my mom's side, family members, they were Catholic, and they couldn't understand why my dad flipped. So it was always like this constant psychological religious war in my head, which, I had fun, like arguing with my Catholic grandpa in particular. He was a very particular guy. Regarding like, oh, why the priest doesn't show you what is in the Bible, because when I was learning Christianity, it was more like, let's analyze what is actually written rather than following orders. So yeah, it was fun.
That was from your father's side or your
Yeah,
mother's
yeah.
side?
So both. Like when I went to Catholic church, my maternal grandparents were like, this is the right way to live. When I was with my paternal grandpas and family members, it was more like, no, the Catholics are bad. It's just like a very limited point of view, but for a child of my age in that small town, it was huge because most of the people in Mexico are Catholics. So you don't get to confront these spiritual ideas at a very early age.
Yeah. And so your father, in terms of his parenting style, he was intense, principled, but he was loving as well.
Yeah, definitely. Very loving, very encouraging. Like you have to study, don't get pregnant and things like that because it's a small town. Um, yeah, and it never I was never attracted to going and partying and going with boys, and it was not in my nature. So yeah, my dad was a guide for me, and I think that was what I needed. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here, I think.
Who took on the mother role?
Both of my grandmas. I think my maternal grandma was more like nurturing. Yeah.
So they were in the house after your mum passed away.
We took turns. My dad, when my mom was sick, so we used to live independently in a city, and then when my mom got sick, I remember that my dad decided to move back to the small town so my grandma could take care and help him. So the first 5 to 6 years of my life, I lived with my maternal side. And then when my mom passed, my dad decided to move us to our paternal grandparents' house. So yeah, we were taking turns. Like we used to live Monday to Friday with my paternal grandfather's grandparents, and then the weekends with my maternal. So both, I think both.
So how did that affect you? How did that influence you, do you think?
Hmm. Oh my God, you're asking me like nobody has asked me these questions. Um, how did that affect me? I guess comparing, I guess, yeah, I developed that ability to keep things to myself rather than, oh, grandma, the other grandma said this about you, things like that. I was more like, okay, I'm in the middle, I'm the moderator. So I think that influenced me a lot, really, to be
Yeah,
like
so
a diplomat.
you became a little bit more skilled in diplomacy and
I think
uh,
so. Yeah.
maneuvering between different social groups.
Yeah.
Talk to me about so how not having a mum has affected you. How did it affect you in terms of your mum passing away? And obviously, I'm very sorry for the situation, but how did that affect you? How do you think that's influenced your view of the world?
I think at a very early age, I knew what death was. And knowing at that early age that I wouldn't have a mom, it was like, wow, I'm alone in the world. Like, I had my dad, I had my grandmas, but it was more like, wow, I have to deal with myself. I have to know what to do with my own life. So I think that was a huge like eye opener. Understanding death, what death means. I wasn't like, oh, like when my mom is gonna come back. Some people lie to their children, right? Like, oh, he went for a trip or things like that. I knew what it meant. So I think that gave me a lot of independence. Um, I don't know, maybe always trying to um, not protect myself in a way that not exploring the world. Quite the contrary. Like, okay, I'm independent, but now I have to find for myself how the world works. Because yeah, I have my dad, but he was at work. I have my grandparents, but at the same time, it made me more curious. I guess that was what happened.
So, what kind of work did your father do and your grandfathers do?
So my paternal grandfather was a baker. He used to have like a very famous bakery shop. Very delicious bread, by the way. I don't eat bread
Mm.
anymore, but it was great. My paternal grandmother was like a housewife. My maternal grandfather was a cowboy, a rancher, and my maternal grandma was a housewife. So
Okay. What about your father?
my father is an accountant, so
Okay.
he was always working in the city.
Okay. And your parents, how did they meet?
Oh, my dad always told us this story. I think my mom was the one who put the eyes on him, and then for some reason they met. I exactly don't know if my mom arranged that or planned that out, but I think it was an affair. In these small towns they have the annual fair, and in Mexico you have the rancher cowboy, the bulls, and uh, it's like where they go to a corral, and then they have the cows, and they basically ride the bulls,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
they, oh, so rodeo, right? That's how it's meant.
Rodeo. Yeah.
Rodeo. Yeah, so that was that culture, and I think in that annual fair, they met at the roller coaster or something magical.
Yeah. Yes. Magic took place, right?
Yes.
How did you see your father deal with the death of your mother? How do you think he handled it?
I mean, it was very maturely because he didn't, abandon us. He assumed the responsibility fully. Obviously, he had to be the provider, and he never, like he never neglected us. It was a very, very nurturing dad, and took both roles. Um, and then I think when he found Christianity, it was more like yeah, more meaning to life, but the promise of eternal life and, all these spiritual concepts give him comfort. That's my interpretation of what happened. I don't know exactly. But I think that's how he took it. He pursued more the spiritual path.
Yeah. And you said he didn't marry until later on. So how far later on did he
Yeah, I was 15 years old, so almost ready to leave the high school, trying to think about university and all that.
yeah, so why do you feel he took, he waited 10 years before he chose to?
Because he was so worried about my brother and and I, that he didn't want to just to marry for the sake of marrying. I think he just waited for the right person, and I think, probably he waited for us to be ready. Um, yeah, I exactly don't know why he waited.
Okay. And so then you and how's your relationship with him now? Is it good?
Yeah, it's very good. We had our little encounters here and there in terms of like arguing for religious purposes, basically, because I was, you know, raised in a Christian household, and then I discovered that there were more things to know, and other than a couple of, little conversations that didn't go too well, we are at peace with each other, like with our personal decisions. He finally understood that I'm an adult and I'm not gonna, believe something that, yeah, I was more gullible in the past. Not that Christianity is bad, but radical Christianity could be very damaging, just like radical Islam, radical anything.
Right. So
Yeah.
talk to me about your journey. How have you got to where you are now?
So I think because of my mom passing, probably more in my subconscious, I got this need, right, to find a cure or to help people. Also, when I was growing up, because I was very close to my grandma, she was always complaining, like my legs, my arthritis, things like that. So all that suffering kind of got ingrained, and it made me think like I need to do something to diminish suffering. I think that was the cause that I went into medical school. And then when I was in medical school, the first 2 years were great because it's basically the sciences, anatomy, physiology, histology, and that's when you are like, wow, this is how the heart works. This is how our physiology works, and it's just admiration, appreciation for the human body. Then you go into your third and fourth year, which is clinical sciences, and then you do your rotations in the hospital at different services. So I was in the gynecology clinic, in the internal medicine clinic, and all I saw was like, oh, this is like a um, I don't know, a mechanic shop where the cars come and they just get fixed, but never is never the same. And I was disappointed when I faced the clinical years. Then in Mexico, we call something called internship, which is mandatory. You have to live in the hospital literally for a year, so
Yeah.
you get really, really familiar with medicine. And I face it. I faced death every single day because what you do is hospitals are just basically like the last stage where people end up. So yeah, I faced that every single day, and that gave me more strength, and I guess more, probably some sort of depression here and there, but also appreciation for life. And that made me decide, what I don't want to be. Like, I don't want to be, with all due respect, to internists, to people who deal with these very sick people. I said I don't want to be just like a fixer. There's no meaning in me for that. I wanted to be a surgeon because I thought, well, that really solves some problems, at least. But somebody told me, you are a woman. One of the surgeons, he was very nice. You're a woman, and it's not derogatory or, misogynist or diminishing your gender, but it's basically you have to think what's gonna come to you in the next decades. And he told me, look around, all the surgeons who are women, and tell me, do you see them happy? And I said, no, they look miserable. And again, not offense, that was in the early 2000s. Probably they're very, accomplished and happy women surgeons. But
And this is
that
in the
was
US.
that was in Mexico. I studied
Okay.
medicine in Mexico. So I was like, no, I don't admire any of these women. And he told me, yeah, choose something that goes according to your lifestyle, because I like to run and all that stuff. So I said, okay, what can I do? And not only that, when I was in my social service, which is the 6th year of medical career in Mexico, you go to a rural community where you serve people because medical school was basically free. So you pay back in that 6th year. And I realized, people don't, if people don't want to improve in their health, no matter how many prescriptions I fill for them, no matter how many new anti-hypertension pills are new in the market, no matter how many pharmaceutical representatives come to visit me and provide me with all the samples, no matter what, if people don't want to change, they don't change. And that's the story that we see all over the world. Diabetics come to their appointment, they get their blood sugar checked, they get their weight checked, but they don't change because they lack education. So I realized, no, I don't want to be a prescriber. And I came to two options because obviously I hadn't invested 6 years of my life in medical school. And I said, well, I'll do something behind the scenes, something that is rewarding, intellectually stimulating. And I realized radiology or pathology were my two options. And then, radiology, radiation, I was like, no. So pathology was what I choose. And I did pathology in Mexico, pathology residency training. But I always wanted to practice with the authors of the textbooks, because all medical textbooks are written mostly in the US, big universities, big academic centers. So
Before you
uh,
before you carry on, what is pathology?
pathology literally means the study of disease. I think it's Greek or Latin. Sorry about that. But it's basically the study of disease. And that means that you understand what's behind, or what are the chains of events that led to someone to develop some symptoms, diseases, entities. So yeah, that's pathology, and has to do with doing autopsies, analyzing tissue samples from people, analyzing cells, all the samples that come from the medical offices, from the surgical theaters, from ambulatory surgery, everything that comes out of the body goes to the pathology department. And we
Yeah.
analyze that and we make the diagnosis. So I choose that, and I wanted to practice in the States, so I had to repeat residency in the States. Um, I did all the examinations required, and I ended up in residency in Massachusetts. Then I did my neuropathology training in San Francisco, and now I'm here.
Cool. So, can I ask you how much time we have left? Because I've got a lot of questions. I want to make sure I
We are like 30 minutes now.
right.
Yeah.
I need 30 more minutes if you have
Okay,
that.
yeah, let's go.
Okay. So you're here now. What were you like in teenage years with guys going out other than being like studious? What was your personality?
So how was my personality in my teenage
Yeah,
years?
teenage to being up to San Francisco. What were you other than a doctor? How would you define yourself? What was your personality?
So religion definitely played a significant role in my life. Like trying to be following the rules, and that was basically indoctrination, and that was part of my upbringing. Do the right thing, follow the rules. And medical school is also very militaristic, so it combined well, to shape my personality in terms of like doing the right thing. However, I think that affected me in the sense that I was probably this side of me now that I'm in my 30s and my late 20s, that I am more like, what, let's conquer the world, let's do everything at once, uh, was something that was repressed when I was an adolescent. So, but other than that, it wasn't never something that was so strong to stop me to do what I really like. So I'm very into music. I'm very into arts. I'm very into alternative stuff, into reading, into um, yeah, more like educational, personal development things, understanding politics, understanding religion, understanding uh, art. I don't know, more in the intellectual sphere, I guess.
Okay.
I also like sports, like individual sports, especially running. So running was like I think was my meditation. I didn't know anything about meditation growing up, so that was my time to relax, I guess.
Okay. So you journeyed from there to here. Who are you? Tell me what your identity is. What have you become?
Oof. I think I'm a performer and an educator. I like I think I always like the stage, but not just to show my face. It was more like I have to have a purpose, and I have a voice, and my personality was very um, chill, very extroverted when I was growing up. I think I forgot to mention that, but when I was growing up, I loved to be, the dancer, the joker, etc. Religion came and kind of turned off that radical Christianity came and turned off that, you know, inspiration, I
Right.
guess, that initiative. But now that I'm psychologically free from that, and that happened in my 20s, I'm like, okay, I need to do something with the knowledge that I have. So who I am, I guess I'm a woman who wants to bring justice and health and hope to the world. And I guess diet and health is just like a tiny fraction of what I can do, for everybody. But you just have to pick your area of expertise and let the spiritual leaders do their work and the entertainers do their job. And
So that's your definition. Okay. So let's go deep. Let's figure this out a little bit
oh,
more.
this is so deep. Let's go more deep. Okay.
Uh, Talk to me about whether the universe is random or non-random.
No, I don't know really. Oh, the universe is random. No, I don't think so. I
So
think that there are many ways that you can play in the universe, that probably there are many outcomes, but at the end of the day, it's just like, do you believe in destiny, right? That will be the question, because if it's random, there are multiple realities and multiple outcomes could be possible. But if we know a destiny, like, now
But
going more spiritual, if we come from source and we disperse, now we have to come back to source with different combinations, but at the end we need to go back to source. I think it's destiny.
right, right. So, so you believe the universe is non-random. If when I say non-random, I'm talking about existence, like everything coming into existence.
Yeah. So I had my atheist phase where I used to believe that, like, life doesn't matter. Well, or better said, it doesn't matter what happened after you die. We are matter. We are gonna decompose. There is no soul. There is no consciousness. There's no spiritual life or realms. And I used to believe that. I was comfortable because you if you're not, I wasn't traumatized by religion, but I was constricted a little bit. So if you are living something that is not serving you anymore, you kind of go to the opposite side. And I went to agnosticism and atheism my early 20s, late 20s. But then it didn't let me anywhere. And until now, I'm regaining my spirituality, but without labels. And I'm
Okay.
willing to admit that I don't know, and I'm very comfortable not having all the answers.
How do you rationalize that the universe is non-random?
I can. I used to feel that way because if the universe is eternal and no space, no time, I can't comprehend because right now I'm constricted to my experience in this life, which is limited by space and time. So I don't know.
Right, but you believe that the universe is non-random, correct?
I think there are many outcomes to many moves, like in a chess game, to attain a goal. But I think it's like a closed system. It's like a loop. It's like,
But the
a,
chessboard was created, right?
yeah.
The chessboard was created. So what I'm saying is, but you don't rationalize how that chessboard was created. You don't. What I'm saying is, how do you reason non-randomness? How do you justify your belief in non-randomness? Because if you don't justify your belief in non-randomness, then there's no difference between a Christian saying you got to have faith and you saying that you believe in non-randomness, but it's just a belief. They're mutually equivalent, right?
I don't know if I can answer that question again. It's like, I don't know if the universe is random or not. I just think that's the way it is. But it's just like, different people have different life experiences. And if you ask a Muslim if the Quran is the truth, they will say yes. If you ask a Christian the Bible is the truth, they will say yes. Hinduism, etc. I think at the end of the day, it's just like the fable, the tale of the elephant and the blind man, where they are palpating different aspects of the elephant, but at the end we are just perceiving part of the reality. And then it's the conjunction of
Right.
all
But
experiences.
the difference here is that the conversation is about being deep. So whereas the other people, they're blind, they cannot see the different parts to make up the totality of the elephant. The human has awareness, so they can reflect and go in deep. So if it's the Muslim or if it's the Christian or if it's the Buddhist or whatever, in their stories at the superficial level, they may be different. But if you break it down and you go deep, is it different? That's the question. That's where I'm trying to get to. So my 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 point is this: that if the universe is non-random, then anything that is non-random is by design.
Mm.
If if something is by design, by definition, design means that there is a reason or a purpose for that design. If there is a reason or purpose, what is the reason or purpose? What is the design of the human being? What is the human being here for?
Yeah, again, if you're asked that question to a Christian, they will say, oh, we are here to be tempted by Satan, but at the end God wins, so you have to
Right,
adapt to
right.
his.
But what is your meaning?
in my case, yeah. So it's just to say that at this point, I'm very comfortable not having all the answers, and I'm just exploring um, different philosophies. Some people believe in aliens. Some people believe in Hinduism, reincarnation. Some people,
Okay,
you
so
know,
let's
I have
rephrase the
no philosophy.
question. Let's
Yeah.
rephrase the question. What do you think could be the meaning of life?
Hmm. I think to express yourself with love in all you do, and that love is not only the feeling of romantic feeling, but it's basically um, having respect for yourself and respect for others, caring about yourself and caring about others. I think we are all one. If we look at the physical level, we are just matter that is condensed in this human form. If we die, we disintegrate into molecules and atoms or atoms, and um, but in the atom there is still space and electrons and neutrons. And so at the end, if we die and if we kind of become dust, and if somebody else dies and becomes dust, that dust can mix and fertilize the soil to get raised to. So it's a cycle. I think it's a cycle. So we need to live. The purpose of life for me would be to live to your fullest, obviously worrying about the common good, because at the end of the day it affects you, not in a um, egoistical way, but just having that understanding, like, everything is part of me.
So why do we need to do good?
Because doing good brings good things. I mean, it's in your own personal experiences you can attest that. And even if good things do not come to you, at least you feel at peace. I think being good is part of our human nature. So you have to align with good because it's part of our nature.
Talk to me about quantum physics. You mentioned that the atom breaks down and then there is space.
Yeah.
So just because there's space, it doesn't mean there's nothing in that space. It means
Yeah.
that we can't observe what is in that space. So when you talk about the example of the body decomposing and degenerating and it's turning into dust, that's the physical element. But the
Yeah.
space between the particles, that is still there, right? So talk to me about your understanding of quantum physics and how it relates to your philosophy.
Well, I don't know much about quantum physics. I know that has to do a lot with very abstract concepts, but in very lay terms, I think whatever space is there that we cannot comprehend because we live by time and space and matter. um, I think there is other realities, other possibilities. Who knows? Like some people say, we only see a spectrum of light, which is infrared to ultraviolet, but that doesn't mean that there are not other frequencies. So I think that space has to do with other frequencies, probably other realities. I'm open to explore those concepts and philosophies, but actually, I don't know. And again, I go back to the same statement that I said. I'm very comfortable not having all the answers because that keeps me alive and curious just to keep learning, because we will die, and until the day you die, you're going to keep learning. So I'm happy with that. I came to peace with that.
So there's three different thoughts.
Yeah.
Thought one is that you're climbing up the mountain and you hold the wrong philosophy and you get to the top of the mountain and you're on the wrong peak. Thought two is that you are climbing the right mountain, you get to the top of the peak and you see the right view. And
I,
thought three is that you just climb the mountain and it's not about what peak you're on. So if life is just about experience, which is what you're saying to me, you're of that third philosophy, where it's just about the experience, then what would be the purpose of the experience if the universe
well,
is non-random?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree, which still I cannot comprehend, but it's what they say. And I don't know where this is coming from. Probably it's Buddhism, probably it's like a ancient philosophy. Not sure exactly where this concept is coming from, but I've heard it repeatedly in many spiritual groups. Um, that is love, and God is love, or God, the creator, source, whatever you want to call it. We are not talking about the bearded white man in the Bible, right? Or the paintings, like source, and
So
it's not even,
define God.
yeah.
Define God in your terms.
So that's the thing, like
You're saying if God is love, we're here to love. But then who is God? Define God.
I think everyone is God. It's just like a tiny pieces of the same, like when they say the universe is experiencing itself. I kind of believe that.
What is love?
um I think love is the highest frequency that makes everything possible, because I don't know, it's just giving just for the sake of giving. It gives you pleasure.
So how do you, if you believe that the universe is random, non-random, how do you, how does that affect your being? Meaning, is there a need to connect with an awareness of the universe being non-random, or there is no reason to connect? There's no reason to. There is no. You can exist without connection. You can. It's irrelevant whether the universe. It's irrelevant whether the universe is. The fact that the universe is non-random is irrelevant to your awareness.
I guess if I am aware of that the universe is not random, that means that I have to align with the principles and values that make me go back to source. It will be more like a comparing that with the salvation, right? Like, right, good people go to heaven, bad people go to hell. Um, I think heaven and hell are here right now. I think that at the end it's just like, just because you're aligned with that frequency of light and love, which darkness and hate obviously have to exist so you would experience those things. But if you align with the things that give you pleasure, I think that's all that matters at the end of the day. If it's random, or if I climb the wrong mountain, I think the present, being in the present, is what really matters. The journey matters more than the destination. So I don't know. Maybe I'm mixing a lot of things, but
Does truth exist?
yes, I think so.
Is there objective truth?
Yeah, if you want to go in the mathematical arena, yes. I mean, depending on the gravity, weight is different in certain points of Earth. But at the end of the day, gravity exists. There are rules of gravity. Um, so we know that it's real. We cannot just levitate. That's not truth. We
Right.
are attached in this body, and that's truth at this point.
Is it possible to be? Do you believe there are spiritual truths? Is it possible to discern not only physics but spiritual truths? Do you believe there are archetypes? You talk about love. Love is a frequency.
Yeah.
If love is a frequency, that is a vibration. Is that a truth?
According to my interpretation, yes. I mean, it's just, you can see that through the history of mankind. The civilizations who prosper are the ones who do not go into corruption. Well, the world is corrupted, but at least if love predominate into a certain percentage, let's say 60% of the people or 80% of people are intrinsically good, even though 20% is evil or bad, at the end of the day, the love frequency wins.
Okay. So we've only got 10 minutes left. So let me pause it here and ask you, what would you like to talk about?
Well, I would like to know more about your show. Are you trying to and educate people with the Socratic method, or what is the purpose of your channel?
So I put this channel together as an expression.
Okay.
So from my perspective, it's slightly selfish because I'm seeking knowledge and wisdom.
Okay.
So I figure if I can access people and I can share thought with them, then we can share a journey together of understanding and knowledge.
Okay.
So I see myself as just a seeker, somebody who's curious, is constantly looking for meaning and trying to discover meaning. So I feel the only way really you can get a better perspective is if you come outside yourself and you look at the experiences of more than just yourself. So what is going on out in the world? And I think, the technology has got to such a stage where I'm able to do what I'm doing right now very easily. And not only am I able to do it, but the awareness and the consciousness is available to have that be reciprocated from the other side as well.
Okay.
So I'm a man of the moment.
Okay. And do you believe that the universe is random?
From how I've reasoned through, I believe that the universe is non-random.
Mm,
Yeah.
good.
Well, you haven't given me the evidence to prove
I
your
don't think
point
it's
of view.
provable.
Huh?
I don't think we can prove that at this moment. Many people are talking about ascension. Those concepts just came to me this year. I didn't have an idea what all the realities are possible, and even if that's real or truth. So for me, it's just like, yeah, sounds fun. It gives me more hope in terms of, like, at the end of the day, everything is it is just let it go, embrace it, be with the flow. But there is suffering, and you know what suffering means, so try to help others to free themselves from suffering. I don't know, it's a tricky situation to find out why there is suffering, why there is darkness, why there is evil. But at the end of the day, it's just expressions of the reality. I don't even know how to put it, but they have to exist. Just accept and choose wisely.
So the balance exists of suffering in terms of suffering is a physical concept. We have to first of all agree whether their human is um, only physical.
Yeah, exactly.
So from my point of view, from my perspective, I've seen that the human experience is both spiritual and physical. So if you recognize that, then you're two entities in one, meaning that the human is having a spiritual experience and a physical experience. So you're operating in two different dimensions, two different realms within a single body, within the single entity of the human form. So that most people think we're just one and it's me. But actually, if you reflect, there's two of you. There's the higher self and then there's the natural self. So one is taking data from the physical world, and the other one is taking data from the spiritual world. And so your interpretation of suffering relates to more the physical world rather
Yeah.
than the spiritual world. So if you have perspective, then your version of suffering shifts. So, so it's important, which is what you said right at the beginning, is not being superficial, going in deep, reflecting, looking at meaning. But then, that is part of the journey to look at your own perspective of how you see and how you observe the world. So we've got about 6 minutes left. Let me ask you a couple of quick questions. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I think I am an introvert by nature. I think that's my real essence. But I take advantage of the self-expression that I need to do to be happy, I guess. So that extrovert side of me comes, just like going on camera. I don't care if the Queen of England is watching. I don't care if my previous professors are watching, because through life, you just come to realize that um, this is what matters. If nobody talks about these issues, life will continue the same way it is. And not that the Queen of England or my professors are wrong. It's just like this inhibition that is artificially created in us by figures of authority. Um, it's fake. It's fake.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
just
not sure if it's figures of authority or just that our our self-imposed perception of gaining the esteem of others to win our own security.
of
So
course, but that's a preset, right? If things were different, we wouldn't be growing up with this sort of um, misunderstanding of authority.
yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a physical concept
Yeah.
related to physics, whereas when the child comes, it doesn't have that cognition. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
But then it's influenced by the physical environment. People influence its spiritual state. Are you an idealist or a realist?
Hmm. I used to be very idealist, but experience obviously gives you, yeah, some lessons, and I try to bring my ideals into the reality. So, yeah,
You get feedback from the environment.
yeah.
Um, are you emotional or rational?
Cool. I'm both. But nowadays, I have to learn to be more rational, not in the stoic way, right, of being, because um, I think my right side of the brain, if we want to touch base on anatomy, the creative aspect, the emotional aspect, um, is more dominant in me. But in order to not lose track easily in these times of confusion and information warfare, I need to be more rational.
Are you a risk taker or are you risk averse?
Risk taker, of course.
Are you practical or intellectual?
Hmm. I'm learning to be more practical. I used to be very intellectual, but I appreciate very much nowadays practicality.
Do you prefer certainty or uncertainty?
Certainty, of course.
Okay. Um, if you were an animal, what kind of animal would you describe yourself as?
Um, um, Probably a bird.
What kind of bird? Ostrich or an eagle or a kingfisher? What kind of bird?
Sometimes an eagle, sometimes seagull or a dove. It
So,
depends.
what are the qualities of a bird? Let's say three qualities. What are the three qualities of a bird you have?
Freedom,
Hmm.
height, and beauty, I guess.
Okay. They say you're the average of the five people that you surround yourself with. If you want to raise your average, and it's a fantasy, you can choose people from the past, present, or future. Who would be the five people you would want to most surround yourself with?
Oh. Any of the big composers, Beethoven or Mozart or Vivaldi. Um, Bruce Lee or some martial art famous person,
Why Bruce Lee or martial arts?
because they have a lot of discipline and they know how to manage energy at the physical level.
Okay.
So, um, all right, what else? Five people. It's I realize that it's very difficult for me to admire people now. Nikola Tesla. some woman from ancient worlds. I don't know, maybe a pagan witch or something. Um, because we don't know most of the history, so I'm sure that there were very powerful women in the past. Um, and somebody who lived in the, I don't know, early early years before our era, just to know if Jesus was real or not. That would be great to know.
Yeah. Okay. What's your definition of success?
Happiness.
What's your definition of happiness?
Having everything you need at the moment you need it and being content.
Okay. What's your final message? We've come to our hour.
This was a very deep conversation. I appreciate it. Thank you. And it's important that everyone has to stop a little bit. This pandemic and the lockdown serve for that purpose. I found a lot of, you know, truths or lies during this lockdown. So we need to stop, reflect, and decide what we want for our lives. I think a purpose-driven life is something that all of us should procure and focus on.
Are you happy?
Yes.
Good, good. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. And, we'll maybe come back in a few years and see where you're at or something to that effect. Who knows?
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and or separately, if you have, you want to talk about your other subjects, then there is that option as well.
Yeah, we have a purpose, right? In my case, at this moment, I think my purpose is to spread the message of health. There are many aspects of health, but one of the most important and the one that we have control over is our diet. So my handle is Raw Vegan Doctor. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Instagram and Twitter. And I can share with you a little bit what I've discovered in terms of how to feed ourselves correctly.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.